The following episode might contain sensitive content that you might not be comfortable listening to. This will include topics such as self-harm, suicide, alcoholism. If any of these things or anything related might disturb you, please proceed with caution or click off the video now. Sometimes it's very helpful to just sit there. Just stand still for a moment. Don't do anything. And just clear your head. Take in whatever air it might be. You might be in a hot room. You might be outside. But it's good to reconnect with reality. What's up? My name's Hazy. I go by a lot of aliases. A lot of people around me, things know me as a lot of different names, but you can just call me Hazy. Welcome to the first episode of the Only Rainy Days podcast. Something that I've been dreaming of, something that I've been thinking of for a while, and I'm finally taking the time to sit down, get the things I need to do, get things I need to make this a reality. As you can tell from the title and things, assuming that I actually name it something similar to what's in mine. Title of this episode should be half pilot, as this is the first episode, and then 2, I will be later talking about learning how to live for yourself and things like that. So, I just want to start off with, laying the basis for this and, what I hope to accomplish and why am I here and all these things, aspirations, inspirations, everything that's core to this dream, everything that's core to what I'm doing. So, as I said at the beginning, this has been something that I've wanted to do for quite a while. I have a picture, I have a screenshot somewhere. Back in 2017, 2018, me and a group of my friends, some of my friends, we all play League of Legends together. And back then, there used to be a club system. So I remember back then, I made the club for all of us because, it's a club and you get 5 characters as your little tag that shows up at the end of your name. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. So I made the club for all of us, and I struggled with the name for a little bit. And, I'm listening to all my friends throw out all these names and whatever. And it's just nothing really sticked. I was just like, I'm going to name the club Only Rainy Days. And I named it that. So the clan tag was period ORD. And I think it was a dollar sign at the end because I think it was taken or something like that. And I just remember having that as my clan tag. And I was staring at the name for a while. I was like, I really like this name. But I need to figure out how can I actually do something with it, because it feels bad if it was only to be immortalized, only to be a thing in League of Legends. And the feeling only got stronger when they removed the system a couple years later, 2 years, give or take. It's 2020, 2021, somewhere in the midst of the pandemic, they got rid of the club. So it's been something I've always wanted to do, or at least I wanted to figure out something to do with it, something, whatever it might be, with myself. I wanted Only Rainy Days to be a title for myself, not even a title, but it would be something that I could say and know that this is mine. This is my thing, whatever it might be. It could have just been an art project, could have been anything for all I know, really. It's not my place to really figure out so early what it should have been, but this is what I decided on. And basis of this podcast, I remember hearing this very funny thing from a different podcast that I listen to every now and then, and they would say it, and I always thought, first time I heard it, I thought it was I wouldn't say stupid, but I was baffled by when they said it. I was like, well, that's just kind of weird. But as I look back on some of the things that I've seen with my friends and things, the statement came true. I don't remember exactly what podcast, but someone said, men either go to therapy or start a podcast. There's no in between, and they always choose one of those two things. And quite frankly, it doesn't really apply to me because I've been in therapy before. I was forced to therapy, but I've been to therapy before. Therapy, counseling, the whole shebang. But something that I've always done, growing up in my adolescence, my teenage years, to help me get through things and get through problems and to just figure out how to be a better person on my own without needing someone else to help me or someone else to guide me 24/7 was whenever I would work or whenever I play games, something like that. One thing I've always really loved was listening to people talk. So like if I'm sitting in my dorm room in high school or something like that, I'd turn my music off and I would just listen to my roommates and friends just like talk around or something like that. Hearing talking has always been interesting. I've always just liked to learn things and hear things. I went on massive, and I mean massive, Wikipedia hunts during school, class, whatever it was. I was just always hungry for information. In high school, I got really big into philosophy and mortality and things like that. And I naturally looked out for it. I went out and I tried to find as much as I can about philosophy and all these things. But it also led to a point where I just like to hear people talk about themselves. I like to hear their thought processes, because one thing that's very apparent from just being online, not serially online, but I spend a good amount of time online, and just it reflects in just the people I meet in my life, is that it's not necessarily that everyone's hungry for validation all the time, but when it feels like your back is against the wall, you like and you value hearing other people's opinions on things, and you just like to hear how they would go through it, because it tells you can kind of base their response and how they say they would act as like you can ground yourself in it. You can figure out, okay, well, what I'm thinking, is that a logical thing to think, or am I off in left field and I'm just like losing my mind? So I just always enjoyed just hearing people talk and hear about their life experiences and hearing how they broke down things. And through a lot of weird internet tunnels or things, I found a small handful of people, internet personalities, etc., that was kind of, they focused themselves on those things, whether it be talking about themselves or talking to other people about the things they've gone by and bringing their stories and their thought processes to life. And it's something that I always love. So I just want to make sure I get this out in my first recording, just to make it known, like some of the things that like kind of are my influences and things that led me to where I am now. So all YouTube basically, but somewhat big name. I don't really know the number off my name, but Sir Moore. I probably said that name wrong, but Sir Moore on YouTube, guy that runs around and does like VR chat interviews. He was probably one of the first people that I found doing content like that, where it's just like hearing someone talk and the way that it conducts itself, the way that it feels and the way that it sounds. It's like ignoring the fact that you're not talking necessarily. It's like being in person with someone, being in a call with somebody. You just hear them talk candidly about themselves and their life stories. And I love that type of content. I probably have watched next to every single video on his channel. And then with Sir Moore, there's another channel that I found somewhat recently, a Zeal, if my memory serves me right, which does the same type of content, but he pumps out a lot more content. That's not even a diss, that's just kind of the facts. There's a lot of content, and it goes over a very broad amount of things like people things such as like soldiers in the South Korean military to just working in jails and mental institutions, and people suffering from diseases and mental illnesses and things like that. There's so many different people experiencing so many different things in so many different locations. It's just like it's almost addicting, to be honest. It's a little bit addicting to just hear it and just listen to what these people have to say about their own lives. And they both do stuff in VR chat, but with that, I found another YouTuber turned musician, I guess, at the moment, an artist. He goes by Aku on YouTube. He does music under the same name, if memory serves me right. And that's where it starts to step away a bit. It's not interviews. Dude would just record himself and put it basically straight on YouTube. He always talks about doing it in one take, but he just talks about whatever interests him or whatever he has to say. Story times, and just like going over situations in his life, whether it be in a slightly humorous manner or just keeping it 100% with people and just talking about some of the things that he had to deal with in his life and some of the more daunting things and things like that. And I watched, within like the span of a month, I went back through his like 2-3 years of content that's left on his channel, because he deleted a good bit or some of the things on his YouTube channel, because I believe that his original one got banned or something like that. But I watched a lot of his content, very short amount of period of time, because it was just, I just really loved hearing him talk. He is very well spoken. He educates himself well on the things that he talks about. He doesn't necessarily talk about things from just a blind perspective, and he has a lot of interesting thoughts and experiences that just feels good. And those three kind of are like the basis of like where I really enjoy things. But one person specifically, I wouldn't necessarily say it was an inspiration per se, but I guess the way he conducted it a little bit differently not only led me to believe that there should be room for this more. He did something that not a lot of people do, which is he gave himself a side platform to expose his true self away from whatever else he does. So this little window, this little glimmer into who he actually is as a person, and all he does is try to give advice. The whole channel is basically built around just taking questions in from people anonymously and then just answering them. And it's just like, I really love that, and I hope that I can do that one day, because I just helping something I always do. But Schlatt, Jay Schlatt, he has a YouTube channel called The Daily Slap, I believe. And I did not learn about that for a while. I wouldn't say it's hidden, but like it just never came up to me. And I just remember one day my friend like posted one of his videos. I was like, oh wait, this is Jay Slap, like the guy who's just running around causing a muck on the internet. Basically, there's just like he has his own little side thing where he just keeps it 100 with people and just basically gives advice. It's like an old-fashioned like call-in radio station where people just kind of tell him like, this is what's going on, I want to know your thoughts, and he just gives it straight to them. It's just like, yeah, that's good. I love that content, honestly. But I say all that to say is, even though I mentioned 4 people, that's really about it, 4 channels, YouTubers, internet personalities that do this type of thing, I see I talk to my friends, they're interested in these type of things, and I talk to people and they're just like, some people seem like they're hungry for, this type of information. They don't know where to start, and necessarily Wikipedia hunting and doing all these things isn't what people want to do. And I wouldn't say books are inaccessible, but people won't dedicate themselves to it necessarily, or they don't know where to go. They can't find a large array of information from a book. You can only take it one step at a time, and even then it might not even be direct. It might not even feel candid at times. If I'm struggling with trying to understand mortality in a general sense, someone might just talk about it from one standpoint in a book over 90 pages, and sometimes people just don't feel it. So I feel like there's a void. There's a lacking of candid communication and conversation and open, very important, open dialogue about mental health and just helping people figure out how to move through their lives without 100% consistently consulting someone else or making wrong decisions all the way to a point where there's no return, and then they have to go to somewhere else or something that would be usually considered drastic to them just to try to get things aligned. Because with the people that I've mentioned and the reading that I actually have done, both with books and Wikipedia, I was able to essentially fix myself. Or I don't want to say fix, because fix is a very harsh word. I don't really want the connotations on that. But so I didn't really fix myself, but I was able to start to guide myself towards a more healthier lifestyle, outlook, appreciation for the things that I do in my life and things that go on in life. But then additionally, I've been able to better assess issues immediately in the situation, because I just kind of hear the voices of the other people that I've heard talk before about these certain things. And it's like, it's guidance in a sense. Guidance is what I was kind of missing. Mental health and things like that wasn't really something that I grew up paying attention to or was really taught about. I remember it is 4:43 a.m. on October 2nd, 2022. I remember about 3 or 4 months ago, somewhere in like mid-June, I remember I was talking to my brother about life and all these things, which is a really rare off occasion because I don't really speak to him like that, or especially about serious issues. But I remember we were just talking about like kind of when did we kind of realize that the quality of our life the quality of our mental health went down. And he described it as like a steady progression, or a steady decrease in it. Like he was fine, fortunately not everyone gets to experience this, but there's this feeling of general happiness, general coasting through adolescence and younger years, simply because you're unaware of things, and you just kind of, anything that might slight you feels somewhat short term in a sense. And he described it as he just kind of realized that it was just going down and down and down. Me personally, I didn't have that. I didn't have like warnings and things like that. And by the time it all hit me, I was 100% lost, because I didn't know what I was feeling, how to deal with what I was feeling, and who could I go to about these things. So I made a lot of mistakes, and I experienced a lot of things since the 8th grade, as we talked about it. And it hit me then that there was I don't know the dates, it's been way too long, but there was a point in 8th grade for me, so about 6-7 years ago, where it's just a regular day, and things, now that I look back on it, things were happening, that were making me unhappy, but it wasn't really affecting me. Like, I was just kind of getting by, and I was still just like kind of I wouldn't say happy-go-lucky, but I was just like somewhat unfazed by a lot of things, you know? And then I walked into the gymnasium of my middle school one day. I remember my friend said, "Oh, good morning, how are you doing?" And somehow that phrase, him asking me, how was I doing, just like completely broke me. It wasn't like it's the first time I've ever heard anyone say or ask me like, how are you doing? But something about that moment just like made me realize like, things aren't that well. Things are going kind of astray in my head, or at least it was the start. It was like the warning. That was the late warning for my headspace, because I went through basically, I mean, it was a steady decline after that. Once I became aware that I wasn't really feeling that well, it started to click with me and went on a steady decline and led into high school. And that like last bit of 8th grade to essentially first month into my second semester of sophomore year. So this is 2019. Oh no, Lord, not 2019. 2016 into February 1st, 2018. I was just struggling. I was struggling very hard with a lot of things. I didn't know what to do. I resorted to the worst things in life, the worst things that I could do to potentially find hope, find answers, find solutions, short-term answers to how I was feeling. I was doing everything that I could to just try to feel better. And unfortunately, the things in the paths that I took in those times where I didn't know where to turn, I didn't know what to do, and I was just kind of, I guess, mimicking what I saw and what I heard instead of actively looking out for things. It messed me up. There's permanent damage to myself physically, and permanent damage relationship-wise with my family, things like that, because I did some things I wouldn't say I'm not proud of. I'm not proud of them at all. That's a given. I'm not really happy with myself, but I don't condemn myself for it, because I can look past it now, because I did what I did because I didn't know what to do. And knowing that I didn't know what to do at the time, I can find peace in the fact that it happened. I'm able to move forward past it only 2, 3, 4 years in the future. It took me a while to get over that, because in that time period, I was between ages of 12 to 14. I did what a lot of people do when it comes to how they try to handle these type of things when they first arise. Usually when people get confronted with bad mental health and things, they kind of just mimic whatever they see. And unfortunately, as also a black male, a African American, and a male too, I saw a lot of unhealthy coping habits for things that people deal with, and I ended up falling back on them because I didn't realize that they were unhealthy. It seemed like the norm to me, so I made mistakes. I remember stealing alcohol and things like that. Sophomore year, I started getting involved in drugs. It wasn't anything hard, but I started up with that. I flared into it a little bit, but the thing that hurts the most really is that I got into self-harm. Self-harm was something that I was somewhat deep into because it gave me, I think it's serotonin. I think that's the chemical. I think serotonin is the happy drug, is the happiness. It gave me some type of feeling. Like I felt very numb to the core. And one thing I will always stress is please do basically anything but self-harm, because there's no going back from it. I made these scars on my arms when I was 13 and a little bit when I was 14. I'm 19 now. So it's been, 5-6 years. And I still see the scars on my arm, and they're not really going to disappear like that. They're a lot more hidden. I think if I show some of my arms for a couple seconds, they wouldn't necessarily see it. But especially because I'm the one that did it and I know what I did, I see them a lot clearer than anyone else does. Anyone else can't. And it's a constant reminder. In a sense, it's a constant reminder of where I came from, because at the time, I couldn't imagine even being where I am. And I'm not even somewhere that's insane. I'm not, insanely wealthy with a lot of cars and all these random things that fuel your ego, things that people usually hide behind. I don't have anything that I'm quite literally, and if you ask my 13-year-old self, they would probably say the same thing. I'm quite honestly still a little bit surprised that I'm alive, because I took a lot of measures into my own hands, and I did come close to attempted and things like that. Like, there was a lot for that type of thing. But February 1st, 2018, sophomore year, I confided finally into a counselor what happened. I got taken out of school, went through therapy, got readmitted into the school a month later, March 1st. And then after that, that's when I started to take the time to figure out how can I figure out what can I do to start avoiding these type of things, and how can I start to regain what I've lost. Because I used to feel happy, I used to feel a sense of purpose, even if I didn't know necessarily what it was just the idea that there was something to do, something I could do, that kept me going. I lost that. It was just like, if it's not clear, I don't know what to do. My mind was foggy. It was a massive brain fog that I was in. I started to take the time to figure out what I lost, and that's when I started getting into the YouTubers, internet personalities that I mentioned before. That's when I started reading up on philosophy, mortality. I have a friend who's really big in philosophy, luckily. He recommended me some books and found me some free copies and things like that. I read through all of them. A favorite book of all time, by the way, The Stranger by Albert Camus. I think Camus himself doesn't like when people say it, but the book is essentially about absurdism, which is, if memory serves me right, is somewhere in between existentialism and nihilism. And I was really deep into nihilism when I was going through my things. So I was like, maybe I can dial it back and just figure out what it means to be an absurdist. And I got really big into that type of thing. And just putting things into context and learning other responses, healthier responses to the things I'm dealing with, is something that I attribute greatly to the fact that I'm still able to function and process as a human being, an alive human being today, because I'm not basically rushing to crash myself at every single given point. I can deal with problems as they come and go. And that's something that I really couldn't have learned, and something I really couldn't have developed without taking the time to just hear other people. And it's not like I listened to them as trying to diminish what I've gone through. I didn't listen to people on these YouTube channels talking about coming from, the worst broken homes, suffering from the worst abuse, and told myself, this is not, you're not dealing with this, so whatever you're dealing with just isn't that problem, isn't that bad. You need to suck it up, which are things that I have heard before in my life. It made me feel very bad. I used to try to just hide everything I was going through, because that's all I used to see, all I still see to an extent. I didn't take it as such. I more just saw it as inspiration, because there's people who even though they're older than me, they come from places and situations and stories that I couldn't really even imagine, things I couldn't fathom, and still found a way to grow from it. And just listening to them talk about how they were able to get themselves out of a hole and the dedication to it, it was like fuel to my fire, because it's just like, that's amazing. It's awe that I felt, that I feel when I hear how someone got out of a situation that was particularly unfavorable, to put it lightly. It's nice. And I think there's a lack of that. There's either a lack for just open, honest conversation and dialogue about mental health and how to go through it, and just hearing about how other people have gone through it and what they're dealing with. And the stigma around mental health only makes it worse. And whatever community that you're a part of, can always make it even worse than it already is. Because some people get shunned, people get kicked out from just trying to break the cycle. Because some people are stuck in their cycle, and they're stuck in their own head. They're unwilling to change from it, even if it means crashing, burning, and dying in the end, because they grew up for so long trapped in it that now they don't even see a light out of it, and all they do is trap other people into it. And it's a self-perpetuating cycle until someone decides that enough is enough, and they move out of it. And that's something that I want to do. I want to help try to start breaking the cycle, because I've seen from a lot of people, a lot of different eyes, what poor mental health does to people. I've seen it drive people to terrible lengths. And I've seen the worst in people when they're dealing with something and they don't know how to handle it properly. Things that I embody still to this day, but I do my best every day to make sure that I continue to chop away at that tree until it starts to actually disappear. Because some people get incredibly angry. They start to lash out on other people as a form of coping, anger issues and things like that. They start to take it out on themselves, physically self-harm. They start to take it out on the people near them. They start to burn bridges. They try to destroy everything because they don't know how to confront their own demons. People who are afraid of chasing their own demons do a lot of things. They get into drugs, alcohol, sex, all the vices in life that makes you feel like the pain's going away when all you're doing is delaying it. And in the worst circumstances, people quit. People stop trying to figure out how to get out of it. They make the decision that it's not even worth it to try to find where the light in the tunnel is. They'd rather just stop there and just close the book in the story, which is something that I've seen before. And I don't think it's weak, because one, it's any person that calls it weak doesn't fully understand what it takes to get to that point and to how to actually close the book. But on the other hand, I don't blame someone for feeling like they're at that point, because everyone has their breaking point. And who am I to tell someone necessarily that they absolutely have to see something through? The best that we can do as individuals, as humans, as friends in a social world, because humans are social creatures by definition, is urge and encourage people to try to remember what it used to be like or what it could be, and try to motivate them to figure it out and explore and try to just see all the things that life can bring. One thing I love to reiterate is just because it is doesn't mean it has to be. And that extends to a lot of things. Even if your life is gray and dull and things feel foggy and it feels terrible. It doesn't have to be. And there's almost always a way out of it. So I think it's important to just try to remember that things can be better. Things can always be better. So as long as we keep that in mind, we start to fuel ourselves towards figuring out what that looks like and how can we get there. So, that's where this comes from. That's the start, the heart and the soul of this podcast. Only rainy days. Because there's only rainy days, but at the very least you can grab an umbrella. So, with that out the way, let's get into the actual beef of the burger, which would be learning how to live for yourself and things that I just mentioned. How can you get yourself out of this cycle and start to move towards this quote-unquote ideal, the things that you want to see for yourself, the things that people talk about you can find in life. How can you get there? The first step, regardless of how it feels, how much it might hurt, anything, one of the most important things that you can forever learn and you need to apply to yourself is that you need to help yourself first and foremost. Always. You need to be your number one priority, because if you're not here, you can't even do anything else that you would consider a priority. Like, it is the crux of everything that you're trying to do, because it is you. Nothing you want to do can be done if you aren't here. And even if you're here in the physical, you won't get the job right. You won't get the job done properly if you're also not here in the mental. One thing that kept me going for a short amount of time, still kind of does, but I realize now that it needs to be a secondary objective, is I've always wanted to just help people. I saw, even if I can't figure out how to get myself out of the situation, if I can try to get someone else out of the situation, I'll feel better. Which feels selfish, but it is what it is. I just want to see other people succeed, even if I can't. But through some bad experiences, didn't take the worst turn, but through some bad experiences, I realized that the quality of the health I was giving people was directly influenced by my own mental health. I couldn't help someone properly if I was struggling myself, because your subconscious responses and the way that you just function, it changes depending on how you feel at the time. So you might be trying to get someone else out of a bad mood, but just your wording and the semantics, you end up not doing it the right way, or not doing it the way that you want. It doesn't feel right necessarily. So you always have to take yourself first and foremost. And you might be asking to yourself, well, okay, but what does that mean? Like, what does it truly look like to live for yourself first and foremost? And there's a small list of things that come with it. Some things that really need to be focused on. And it's this giant idea, double-sided idea that people talk about, which is like purpose and fulfillment. Some people look for purpose. However, they might see their purpose is to give back. Some people might see their purpose is to do whatever it might be. And some people find purpose through many means. So whether it be, if it's this feeling of carrying on a tradition or a family. Some people simply do the things that they do because that's just what seems to be family tradition, and that's just how they operate. And that's not necessarily a problem if it's not self-destructive. So some people find purpose in that. Some people find purpose in the church and religion. That's the one plus I'll give religion, is that it helped a lot of people find purpose in desolate situations, because the idea of pleasing a higher being allow people to find hope when there seems to be nothing else around you. And that gives people purpose. Some people are 100% basically right from the start content with their life purpose being chasing one thing or whatever they want to do, and they'll chase it hellbent until they can't chase anymore and they die. However they do, that's purpose. And this might sound a little awkward, a little confusing. I'm going to try to work it out, but there's a difference between purpose and fulfillment for all of those things that I mentioned. Because just because you feel like you should be doing these things or things that you are doing doesn't mean it'll make you fully happy in the end. Whatever it might be, you could be very simple and just say, my purpose in life is to just advance my family. I just want to be a better situation for myself than where my family was when I was born. And you can get there through whatever means. The purpose is the end goal. The fulfillment is just the journey necessarily. So you could, let's just say you grew up in a family that your combined household income was $30,000, something like that. You didn't really, there were some things that you were missing. So you go through your life wanting to do better. That's your purpose. So you get to their age, and now you're at this point where you're at making, $100,000. Insert whatever number makes sense to you. And you might feel good about it. But will you feel fulfilled about it? What did it take to necessarily get there? Some people feel soulless and desolate in their own mental from the way that they achieved something that they wanted. Sure, you might have the money per year that you want, everything that you could think about. But if you feel like you sold a part of yourself to get there, you'll always feel that type of pain, and it's only a matter of time until that pain catches up to you, if you don't feel it now. What good is making so much money if you hurt people in the process for it? And that goes against something, how you feel about yourself. You hurt people to advance yourself selfishly, and you did it simply because you felt like you had to. It'll bite you in the end. That's not fulfillment. Fulfillment is doing the things that make you feel truly happy, and the things that you would want to chase, essentially, or basically, regardless of the consequence. Things, whatever makes you feel whole in life. Because I'd imagine everyone's goal at the end of life is to be able to look back on everything that they've done and be happy and content with everything that was accomplished. And fulfillment, whatever fulfills you, fulfills your soul, is that content. So, personally, including with this podcast and things like that, one thing that I started to get myself into after I got out of therapy, and I wanted to figure out what would fulfill me, what is the thing I want to chase, I got into art. And art is my fulfillment, basically. It's something that I enjoy doing, and even if it's not my main source of income, maybe if there's no income from it, if I was able to just sit here and have time for myself, I'd still do it. I do it for free. It gives me fulfillment. And we've seen a lot with artists who sacrifice every single thing that they have just to make art. Artists going homeless and doing these insane projects for the sake of art. It's their thing. That's fulfillment, is that inner flame in your soul that drives you forward. So even if, a artist drives himself to the furthest corners of his artistic capabilities and loses everything in the process, if that's truly what he wanted to do because he loved making art that much, he still feels fulfilled. There might be some negativity based on what happened from the pursuing the fulfillment. But what's important is being fulfilled, doing what really makes you feel good inside. Fulfillment and purpose, if you can make them mix together, wonderful. Do it and chase it regardless of what it takes. But those things, that's like your start. Or essentially, that is what is the most important way to live for yourself, because that's what everyone has. Or at least one of those things is how people are able to continue moving forward. In depression and anxiety, it's the fog that starts to take those things away or starts to hide it from you necessarily. And if you lose sight of it, that's when it starts to get sad. That's when it starts to get really bad. If you talk to someone who's struggling, they might tell you, I don't know what I'm going to do in the future. They don't think about the future. It haunts them. It makes them feel bad, or they just simply can't see that far in the future. They're taking it day by day, which isn't a bad thing. If you need to take it day by day, you should. It's calming that way. But it seems like their car's in neutral and it's just somehow coasting along. You won't really, sure, you might get somewhere, but sometimes you won't. Some people who are at the furthest edges of their depression, it's just, they don't know their purpose. They feel like they don't know their purpose. They can't see their purpose, and they don't feel fulfilled from anything. And that's their mental rock bottom. And then if you find someone with either of those things, they're at least able to move forward. So if you see a purpose or just some type of goal, purpose and goal can be used basically interchangeably, as long as it's a form of advancement, basically. Some people have a purpose or a goal in mind and they chase it regardless of what it takes. Maybe it's just the sole sake of survival. Surviving is a goal, and whatever it takes, whatever survival looks like, you just go for it. You'll work a menial job and do things that you don't like to do, things you don't want to do, just so you can pay the bills and eat. And that's a purpose. Surviving is a reasonable purpose. But sometimes if you talk to them and see things they do, you realize that there is a void in their heart, their soul. They're just kind of doing it because they either know they need to or feel like they need to do it. Not necessarily because they want to. It's just days feel like drags, and it's Groundhog's Day all over again. And when you find someone with fulfillment but no purpose, I do believe that there's a circumstance that could arise. Someone that knows what they want to do and what makes them feel good, but they don't really know necessarily what comes out of it. Well, actually, yeah, no. I'm starting to confuse myself. No, you can have fulfillment and not really feel like you have a general purpose, and people just do whatever makes them happy and truly happy, not happy because they're hiding or running from their problems, but they just feel good, or they just feel fine with whatever's going on. And they'll just kind of just go along with the drift, like a man just laying in the waves of the water, just gliding past, and whatever happens. And the situation, they still might feel something bad, they might feel like things are going wrong, but they're still doing what they want to do. So it's clear why even when things are going wrong, they're still here. They know what makes them happy. It's their little comfort zone. And if you find someone with both of them, they might seem like someone who is unable to feel grief or things at times. Some people who have both purpose and fulfillment and they line up, they just seem like some of the happiest people. If you have your dream job and it goes towards your own purpose and goals in life, on the surface at least, they might just seem like there's always a smile on their face, because on the front end, that's everything that someone could ever really want. If you're really big into accounting for some reason, you just absolutely love being an accountant. And that's your fulfillment. You're an accountant, and it fulfills your purpose, your goals of being financially stable, advancing yourself financially, advancing your family, being able to care for other people financially, everything in both purpose and fulfillment. They seem unstoppable. They have a very clear sight in mind. They are living for themselves because they know what it is that keeps them here on earth. And when someone truly gets a grasp on what it is that they love and want to do, at the very least, something that they want to see, it's very hard to take them off of it. Only drastic mental changes can derail someone, because they might realize that you're not being fulfilled from certain things anymore, or this is whatever goal you have for yourself. It's just something that you no longer want to see through. But without those changes, they're living for themselves. That's just, makes them feel good, makes them feel whole inside. So that's the most important thing that you really need to learn. What it is, you need to make notes, write down a lot of things, write down everything that comes to mind. I'm a very big advocate for notes. I got a story about that later, but I'll get into it either never or very far into the future. But write down everything. All your emotions, everything that makes you feel good, everything that makes you feel bad, every single dream and aspiration that you have, whether it feels reasonable or not. Because one of the main things about life anyway is that a lot of things that we might be dreaming about now might have seemed unreasonable to someone 5-10 years ago. Just because it seems weird now doesn't mean that you can't be the first to do it, or there won't be an opportunity for you to do it in the future. You couldn't, if you go back maybe 10 years is a good year, and you were there for like the inception of YouTube or something, you probably couldn't, even though the internet was pretty polarized, very polarized views on the internet when it first was conceived. Someone sees YouTube, it's just a video, this random website where you could just put videos up and people see it. You probably couldn't convince any single person in their lifetime that somebody could make their living off just videos. People had this very strict mindset that you need to go to a company, you need to do X, Y, Z, you need to be on TV, be in movies, radio show personality, or radio host personality, all these things that already existed to them. A lot of people live in the bubble of what they see and not what they think or what they even dream. So it's very important to just write down everything that you feel, because you might be able to be the first person to do it. Someone made the first dollar off making a YouTube video. Someone made the first dollar being a radio star, being a radio host. All these things, because things are constantly being created and innovated. So there's always something that you could figure out. So write down everything. It makes you feel good, makes you feel bad. What goals do you have in your life? If you have any, or just ask someone else for goals. Write down your things that might make you feel happy. What do you enjoy to do? Even if you don't even want to make money off it. What are some things that you enjoy to do in your spare time? Do you like to read books? Do you like to just watch videos, play games, be with friends, clean? Whatever it is. And another thing, and this is a list that you should always have in mind, because with depression and things like this, people have people develop a very negative mindset. This is a very important thing for living for yourself. Write down a list of accomplishments or anything that you feel good about. It can be the smallest things to the biggest things. You won. You were the best Scholastic Bowl participant at your entire state. Wonderful. Write that down on the list, because that's something that you can look back on when you're back against the wall. You can start to remember what you've done and know that you are capable, always capable, of doing so many things. Write that down. All the way to the smallest things that you feel like you might get even ridiculed for at times. Doesn't matter what people think. All you need to know is know where you came from. So I remember at the peak of my depression and some things like that, I didn't even make my bed for a very long time. I just didn't have any. Wasn't making my bed. Wasn't doing the laundry. Wasn't really cleaning my room. And when I started to get better and figure out all these things that would help me, it would create habits and patterns in my life to create structure that I can lean on. One of the mental accomplishments that I have now is I can't really recall the last time that there was a massive spree where I didn't live in some form of cleanliness. Something as simple as that. It is completely open-ended. In the midst of everything else people say, it is quite literally one of the worst things you could write down on the list, because it's not definitive. There's no time frame. I don't care. Because if I was to make a list right now, one of the things I could write down is the fact that I just keep my things clean. Because that is just, it's a plus. There's something anyone else can really tell you. They can tell you it's the norm. The things that you see it as a norm because you see it as a good thing. It's what you want to see. So there's no reason as to why it can't be something you write down on your achievements and compliments list. And if you can actually put a time frame on it, good, because if you ever fall out of that time frame, you can remember when it happened, and you can figure out how can you get it back to like that. So if you made your bed when you woke up every day from the start of September to the end of November, you're in mid-December and you realize that you're just not doing that anymore. You have the awareness of what changed, and you can start to figure out, well, how can I get back to getting that motivation to realize, oh, I was twisting and turning in my sleep, and I have a pillow on the floor over here, and one of my sheets came off my bed completely. Let me put it back together, because it's always an accomplishment. I forget who says this, but it's like an Army sergeant or something like that. I really don't remember the context, so Lord forgive me. But I remember seeing this video of someone giving a speech, and he talked about one thing that people should always do is in the morning, when you get up, make your bed. Because right from the start, you have one thing that you can be proud of, because you've done one thing already. From the first couple minutes that you've gotten up, if you get up out of bed in the morning, or whenever you wake up, and just make your bed, you're already a step ahead. You already did something for yourself. That's very important. Every victory matters, especially when you feel like you're unable to stand 10 toes down. When you feel like you can't stand up, you need things that will lift you up. Every single thing is a victory. And just doing a bunch of different things that you could see as a victory is how you can get a lot further with a lot of things. It really doesn't matter how big or small it might feel. You can keep down a chart every day that you cleaned your room. You see that your shoes on the bottom around the sides, the white is turning into a deep dirt brown because you keep stepping in mud pits for some reason. Clean the shoes. Write it down. cleaned my shoes, wiped down my shoes on October 4th or whatever day it might be. Write it down. And eventually you'll have this giant list of things that you've just done, menial things to bigger things. You know, it could be, I got a 96 on my math test. I got the job I applied for. I applied for many jobs. I got more than one job offer. I had to actually pick and choose which job offer I want to accept. Write down everything, because you'll just have this giant list that reminds you eventually that you're still doing things. Because one of the worst patterns that people fall into is when things go wrong, your mindset on life becomes very negative. You become very affixed on things that you aren't doing right or feel like aren't going well, as opposed to the things you already have done or the things that you are doing well. Everything is completely flipped. It doesn't matter if one of your good friends confided in you for something and you just gave them an answer. It might feel menial to you. It might meant the world to them. But it felt menial to you. Your brain doesn't focus on it. But if you ever feel embarrassed, mocked, or sad about anything, someone could point out, I don't know, your shoelace has been untied for like 5 minutes. You just walked around the entire building like that. Your brain will focus on that way more than helping your friend out with something that they need help with. And that's just how the brain works for some reason. Or that's just a habit that I've seen a lot of people fall victim to. But being aware of these type of things is how you can start to get out of it. And as you get out of these self-destructive, very negative mindsets that you have in your life, you can move towards learning how to live for yourself.